here are three price scenarios that I'm taking a look at still when it comes to Toshi in an event where maybe there is a fully fledged type of hypothetical altcoin season. However, even though nothing I say is financial advice, the first price scenario I want to take a look at is going to be maybe the idea of 1 cent when it comes to Toshi. Now, that right there is around a 14.6x from here, and the market cap, considering current circulating supply, would be around $4.2 billion. Now, when I take a look at something like that, I wouldn't find that something that I would be disappointed with if it maybe even were to happen. And even besides that point, though, some people like to say, oh, but Toshi doesn't have the fundamentals. Well, I don't have that mindset. Let me explain why. When it comes to Toshi, it's a meme coin on the base network. Now, the base network is a layer 2. A layer 2 is basically, in this case, something that kind of allows Ethereum to be enjoyed while at the same time not necessarily having to deal with kind of the nonsense that we sometimes see, like for instance, sky-high gas fees or scalability issues. So a layer 2, generally speaking, when it comes to the case of Ethereum, that's kind of the vibe that it has. However, if we take a look at, in this case, the base network, again, which Toshi is on, we take a look at how that is Coinbase's layer 2. Now, this is where I think things become exciting, because when I say a layer 2, it may sound kind of boring, but then when it comes to Coinbase's layer 2, I think that really gets, kind of the excitement mood maybe a little bit up, because if we take a look at Coinbase, first of all, publicly listed, it's on the S&P 500, and I think that is just very amazing right there. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that when it comes to the base network just automatically, because it kind of has that Coinbase sort of aspect to it, that it's necessarily going to become the best layer 2 out there of all time, because quite frankly, there are more popular layer 2s out there, but then at the same time, I do like that aspect when it comes to the base network. However, when it comes to the base network, I don't think it has that many popular projects on it either. I mean, let's just think about this, right? When I ask people usually what they think about when it comes to the base network, especially when it comes to my friends, they usually think about Brett. Now, Brett is also a meme coin, much like Toshi on the base network. However, I would arguably say it's more popular than Toshi as of right now. But then, keep in mind, a layer 2, again, Coinbase's layer 2, not just some random layer 2, right? And pretty much most people know it for Brett, which is a meme coin. I think that's pretty surprising. But if we take a look at, let's say, like the top 3 recognizable projects, arguably, I would say, at least from what I've observed from a lot of my friends, they usually think about, again, Brett, and in like the second case, they either think about Toshi or Aerodrome. Now, Aerodrome is a decentralized exchange, it's not a meme coin or something like that, but then it's kind of, I think, mind-blowing for me to see how, when it comes to arguably the 3 recognizable projects, when it comes to the base network, 2 out of the 3 are meme coins. I just kind of find that pretty fascinating, and I think if anything, it kind of showcases kind of how early the base network is in the grand scheme of things, despite having that Coinbase aspect. So I find that pretty, again, interesting to me. Now, Toshi is actually listed on Coinbase, not to mention, we take a look at Binance US not too long ago. I mean, that I think is also a pretty major victory right there. Toshi isn't necessarily, I think, useless either. There's something called Toshi Mart, and that's basically kind of like, a meme coin launchpad of sorts. And if we take a look at something like Toshi Tools, it quite essentially helps guide someone towards their journey to be building on the base network. So it's not necessarily useless. Now, will those 2 aspects I mentioned before have the best adoption of all time? I think hypothetically probably not, because, I mean, again, I just maybe don't think that is the case. But then at the same time, I think it's the thought that counts. And not to mention as well, if we take a look at something like, for instance, Toshi, it's named after Brian Armstrong's pet cat. Now, Brian Armstrong is the co-founder of Coinbase, so I think it makes sense. Toshi also, the name is kind of similar to Satoshi Nakamoto, so I find that pretty fascinating as well. Satoshi, by the way, allegedly the creator of Bitcoin. And also what I like about Toshi is that, it's a cat-themed meme coin. I find that pretty interesting. I find that pretty fascinating because Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, usually sometimes when they think about meme coins, people typically they think about, again, Doge and Shiba Inu, which are, they're dog-themed meme coins. I think this one is a little bit different, so I do find it pretty fascinating overall. So in the grand scheme of things, I don't think fundamentally it's that bad, and maybe the idea of 1 cent wouldn't surprise me if let's say we do ever see a fully fledged type of altcoin season. Now, the second scenario I want to take a look at is 1.5 cents. Now, that right there would be around, or should I say nearly, a 22x from here, and market cap, considering current circulating supply, would be give or take $6.3 billion. Now, some people may be thinking, okay, this market cap seems kind of maybe, I think, ridiculous. But then, in my opinion, we take a look at something like Dogecoin, right? That reached over $80 billion in market cap years ago, back in 2021. And we take a look at that year as well. We saw Shiba Inu reach around 40 billion. So we fast forward to right now, where we have over 600 million crypto owners, as opposed to back then in 2021 during the peak of that bull run, we saw around 300 million crypto owners. What would Dogecoin and Shiba Inu reach during this cycle with way more crypto owners if back in 2021 they were able to reach that massive a market cap? You know what I mean? So I'm just comparing, again, maybe the idea of around a $6.3 billion market cap at the price of 1.5 cents. I'm comparing that to what Dogecoin and Shiba Inu reached years ago. It's not maybe what it could do this time around. Again, comparing it to what it did back in 2021. So it doesn't seem that ridiculous to me. Again, that market cap. Now, only time will tell though, but I just don't think it's something too unrealistic for arguably one of the most popular meme coins on the Base network, which again is Coinbase's Layer 2. Now, the third price scenario I want to take a look at is going to be 2 cents. That is nearly a 30x from here, and market cap, considering current circulating supply, would be around $8.4 billion. Again, we've seen Dogecoin pretty much 10x that in terms of market cap back in 2021. So I don't find that too, I think, like outlandish to me. However, only time will tell. And now some people like to say, okay, how soon though? Because they may be wondering, okay, when is this going to happen and all that? Well, I do not know the future, but then at the same time, at least I can take a look back in history. Now, usually altcoins, historically speaking, as a worst case scenario, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. So it would actually mean October this year. It's because the last Bitcoin halving event happened back in April of 2024. So 18 months on top of that, again, October this year. But is that a guarantee? I personally do not think so, because that's based off history, right? I mean, who knows what could happen during this cycle? However, to me, whenever the timeline is, like let's say it is actually that time, or maybe November or December, or let's say sometime in 2026 in Q1, it wouldn't like matter to me that much, because first of all, I've been waiting for quite a while, not just for Toshi, but when it comes to my projects, generally speaking, not to mention, my strategy will stay the same, and that is dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting. And that's pretty much it. And I've been waiting for quite a while, so, I just don't see much sense in me just randomly quitting or leaving like that. I just want to stick it out and see what happens. Again, who knows what is going to be exactly the future? But then at the same time, to me, I just want to stay patient and prepare for a moment in time in which maybe we do see something. I'd rather be prepared than not. This is the way I take a look at it. Now, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but quite essentially, I'm just taking a chance. That's it. If I like a project, I like the fundamentals, I like the community, I just take a chance, and then we'll wait and see. But then at the same time, this is what I'm doing. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I'm not saying anyone to do this or that when it comes to Toshi, but this is just personally my mentality and my outlook when it comes to this. But again, I am still a big fan when it comes to Toshi, and I'm just waiting and staying patient, and that's about it. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.